Again on page 6, please rise. Oh, it's on now. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lesekvivin al lahavchin beinu meven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shastani betzalmoho. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shastani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shastani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrihim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam albish arimihim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asirim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam merkal haaretz halamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasali korsorkihi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechim etzadik aver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten li'ayef koach. Uneinu hayam v'chol yom l'cheinu l'chesed rachamim v'einechu v'einei koreinu v'tikun leinu chasadim tovim Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'lavatai. Ribon kol ha'olamim lo asikotenu anaknu mapilim taknunei lefanecha. אבל אנחנו עמך בנברתך. אשרינו מה טוב חכינו מה נעים גורלנו מה יפה רשתנו אשרינו שאנחנו משכימים ומעריבים ערב הבוקר מרים פעמיים בכל יום שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. קדש את שמך ומקישי שמך וקדש את שמך בעולמך בישועתך תורם ותגביה קרננו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש את שמך ברבים. Shuvitechem leinechem, Amar Adonai. We continue on page 16 with Baruch She'amar. Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Oseh v'reshit Baruch Omeh v'oseh Baruch Ozer M'kayem Baruch Merachem ha'aretz Baruch merachem al haberiyot, Baruch meshalem sakatov l'reav, Baruch la'ad v'kayam la'netzach, Baruch podeh u'matzil, Baruch shemo, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu. Yachi chai ha'olamim melech mishubakim for adei ad shemo, Hagadol Baruch Adonai melech mehulal, Batishbachot. And we continue with Ashrei on page 21. You may be seated. Ashrei Yoshvei V'Techa Yalu Chasel Ashrei Shekakalo Ashrei Shenala Avdila LeDavid. Ilat Adonai daber pi v'vorek ubasar shem kachol elam v'ed v'anachnu nevarcham et aved olam hallelujah hallelujah halli nafshi et Adonai hallelujah Adonai b'chayai azamra le'eloha ha'bodihi. Adonai Shomer et Gerim Yatum Yamanai Yaded V'derech Hashem Yavet Yamloch Adonai Le'lam Elayzim L'dor Vador. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Ki tov Zamra Eloheinu Ki Na'im Navati La B'nei Yerushalayim Adonai Nidchei Yisrael Lechanes. Magi devrav le'achov lukavu mishpatav l'Yisrael lo asachen l'chol goy mishpatim ba yeda'um. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Halu et Adonai min Hashem halu b'amromim. Vayarim Karen Le'amoti La'alocho Chasidav Livnei Yisram Krovo. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shir L'Adonai Shir Chadash Tila Tobicha Chasidim. Yismach Yisrael. L'asur machehem zikim v'nikbedehem v'chavle varzel asopahem mishpat katuv hadarhu l'chol chazidav. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Halu ebakachu halu b'kirya uzo. Hallelujah b'tzotzolei shama. Hallelujah b'tzotzolei tzura. Kol anchamate hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol anchamate hallelujah. Hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Le'olam Amen v'Amen. Baruch Adonai Mitzion Shechein Yerushalayim. Hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elhei Yisrael Osen Aflod Levado V'Rekshim Kavodo Le'olam Yamlei Kavodo Et Kol Ha'aretz. Amen v'Amen. We rise on page 26 for Varek David. Varek David Adonai Le'nei Kol HaKahal Bayomer David. Shem tifartecha tahu Adonai levadecha ta'asit. Tahu Adonai ha'Elohim asher bachata v'Avram v'hodseto me'or kasim v'samta shemo Avraham u'matzata et levavo naman lefanecha v'karov imo habrit. Vayam bakata lifnehem v'yavrum batoch hayam v'yabasha v'yetrot vehem hishlachta v'imsolot mo evan v'mayim azim v'yosh Adonai bayam hahu et Yisrael miyad Mitzrayim v'yar Yisrael et Mitzrayim made al svat hayam v'yar Yisrael et hayad agadol asher asa Adonai v'Mitzrayim v'yeru ha'am et Adonai v'yaminu v'Adonai v'Moshe avdoho. Ashir Moshe uvnei Yisrael et Ashir hazol Adonai vayamru lemor Ashir Adonai ki ga'o ga'a sus v'rochvo rahma vayam oziv v'zimrat ya vayhi li lishua zeli v'yanaveu Elohi aviv aroma manhu Adonai Shmokum Adonai Shemo Michamach b'lim Adonai, Michamach ador b'kodesh, norti lo tosef eleh. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yil Adonai yimloch ha'moshel ba'goyim va'alu mosheim b'har Tzion lishpot et har Esav v'hayta l'Adonai hamlucha v'hadonai l'melech ha'kol ha'aretz b'yom ha'hu Adonai echad u'shmo echad. Someone is to take over at this point? Do we think we're going to have more people? This could be the first time I remember us not having this for this one. Ever. What kept it? A couple years.
I guess we are still able to
Do it, see. You need a. Here.
Yeshkoach, thank you, Barry. We continue on page 29. Yishtabach Shimcha la'ad malkeinu ha'el. Brachot v'hodot metavi ad olam baruch ata Adonai el melech gadol v'tishbachot el hahodot Adon ha'niflaot habocher b'shirei zimra melech elchei ha'olamim. We continue in the middle of page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or u'borech ha'oshech oseh shalom u'reit ha'kol. Amen. El Baruch Adonai Achim. Yitbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shavach ma'aseh yadecha ve'ama she'asita yifaruch ha'sela. Yitbarach tzureinu malkeinu v'goleinu b'rei kedoshim. Kulam ahuvim, kulam brurim, kulam giborim, v'chulam osim ve'ima avira ratzon konam, v'chulam potchim et pihem. מקדושיו תורה ושירה וזמרה ובאחים משבחים ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול הגיבור והנורא קדוש הוא וכולם מקבלים עליהם מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח בשפה ברורה ובנימה קדושה כולם כחרונים ואומרים ביראה קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מנסים למצרפים ומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו לאל ברוך ממות ייתנו למלך. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות אהבה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו. בהירננו בתורתך בהביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו כל מיל ארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנבחרת מכל עם ולשון וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת להודות לך יחך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, והיה אם שמעו את תשמעו. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת ויציב. ודור ודור קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסו נכון ומלכותו באמונתו לעד קיימת ורב חיים. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו ומצילנו מעולם שמך. אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם. תהילות לאל עליון ברוך הוא ומבורך, משה בני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף פלא. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובטחנו ממך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Silent Amidah begins on the following pages. Okay. We will move to page 78. Yeah, because we don't have a Torah reading. We don't have Tachanun or Hallel. It's page 78. Sorry? Sorry. We're on a roll, yes. All right. We also have almost complete, I guess everyone who's here for the minyan is wearing tefillin, which is it's just like 100% tefillin it's an unusual thing for us. So that's, all right, 78. Let's do our standard. Ashrei yoshevei beitecha od yehalalu chasela. Tehila leDavid arumim chaloi hamelech v'avarachashim chalei olam va'ed. Gadol Adonai malal ma'od b'ligdulato ein cheker. Hadar kavod hodecha v'divrei niflotecha asicha. Zeh charafti v'chaya bi'u v'tzid kat chayiranenu. Tov Adonai lakol v'rachama v'kol ma'asav. V'machud chaya meiru ugverat chaya daberu. Machud chamachud kol olamim u'memshat chavachol dor v'ador. Einei chol elech yisaberu v'atan otin lem rochlam be'ito. Tzadik Adonai b'chol derachav v'chasi b'chol ma'asav. Ritzon yirav ya'aseh v'et shavatam yishma v'yoshi'em. Tilat Adonai daber pi v'varech chol basar shem kodsho le'olam ba'ed. Hallelujah. David, this is your. No, we don't. We omit on the day before festival. Some omit on the day before festival. We'll omit today. We'll move to page 80. Uval Shongo Shafesh Yaakov Neum Adonai Vanizo Priti. Saini ruach mishmachorai korash gadol baruch Adonai mimakom and talatni ruach shimei. Baruch Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Chesed chol koyach hatzikat chat tzedek le'olam b'tvat cha'emet t'tenem el Yaakov chesed Avraham. Please read with me in the second paragraph in the English. Praise is our God who created us for his glory, setting us apart from those who go astray, giving us the Torah, which is truth, and planting within us life eternal. May God open our hearts to his Torah, inspiring us to love, revere, and wholeheartedly to serve God. Thus shall we not labor in vain, nor shall our children suffer confusion. Baruch HaGever Shirtach Yiftechu b'chayorei shmecha ki lo azavta dorashecha Adonai Adonai chavetz matziko yagdil Torah v'yadir. Aleinu is on page 83. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol la'atet gedula li'otzer b'reishit shelo asanu kigoyei ha'aratzot v'lo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamalachim hakadosh baruch hu. על כן נקווה לחרון אלו. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. So, in the absence of a minyan, there are a couple of meditations and options that exist in the Lev Shalem for those who are here to recite Kaddish but unable to do so. This is page 30 of the. Barry, you're familiar with reading in the Siddur? Okay, sure. Page 30, yeah. It's in the margin on the left side. As we come to the place in the service where we typically recite Kaddish Yatom, we will note we're observing 2 yard sites in our community today, those of Louis Rothschild, father of Stephen Rothschild, and also of Mildred Kersner, aunt of Barry Wolfson, who's with us this morning. In addition, in our community, we remember those we've lost in the last year. Among them, Bernie Slavitt, Elaine Beagleson, Frank Grossman, George Fisher, Selma Cohn, Lori Gupp, Ben Koff, Matt Yosefat, Peter Gabor, Sandy Richards, Kay Gaines, Irv Zipperstein, Elaine Nevins, and Joan Dane. Yehi Zichram Baruch, may their memories be a blessing. Barry, the reading, I'll get everyone else there too. The Siddur, we're on page 30 of the Shabbat and Holiday Siddur, and it's in the margin on the left-hand side of the page. There's a part for the mourners and a part for everyone else as well. So, Barry? Keep going. Baruch Shem Kavod Machuto Le'olam Va'ed. Praised be the name of the one whose glorious sovereignty is forever. And together, Oseh Shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. This concludes our service, and we will. We have a psalm. We do have a psalm for the day. We are on page 90, I believe, or 89 at the bottom. 90. Here we go. Yes, page 90. On the 16th. This concludes our service, and we will run over a quick study together of the last. Yes, thank you. The last Mishnah of Moed Katan.
This system's not turned
12:31.
So a bonfire is the 11:20.
Well, if you want to start burning it, yeah, I mean, starting at 11:25 would be. But the time for biur nullification, the cutoff is 12:31.
That's good. I'm guessing it's the last second.
Yeah.
I'm used to, just enjoy it.
With the kids, there's always some chametz stick stuff that hangs around. Oh. Uh-huh. The
If you grant after that time, having sold it, I used
someone else's property. I mean, that's right. That is I thought about that. I did think about that. I've given that actually a lot of consideration. And my thought was that you could separate what you could actually do. So what I actually tell people is that I would say separate the biur from the nullification. So nullification really should take place after the sale, because then it says anything that's remaining with you is hefker. But then the biur itself should actually take place before the sale goes into effect, and that way you're not destroying someone else's property. Ideally, that would be, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's never too early to burn chametz. I mean, I'll say that. Okay. That's one of those slogans that doesn't really, it's a very small constituency that works within. It's never too early to burn chametz. 182 in the book, I know, so Bill had a copy. We're looking at the last Mishnah, and rather than just me hanging out up here and reading to everyone else, would somebody like to, thank you, would somebody like to read the Mishnah for us? Let's see, is this one? Yeah, this one's not, we need to replace the batteries. It's going to say it's working, but it's not going to work for long. Yeah, okay. We can give it a shot.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello. On the intermediate days of a festival, women may wail in grief over the deceased, but they may not clap, tap.
No, sorry. We're the Mishnah on. Oh, I'm sorry. I've said 182. I picked the wrong one. 190. I'm sorry. Yes. You're absolutely right. On the intermediate days. Thank you.
But they may not clap their hands in mourning. Rabbi Yishmael says those who are close to the biur may clap. On the new moon, Hanukkah, and Purim, which are not festivals by Torah law, the women may both wail and clap their hands in mourning on both the intermediate days of the festival. On new moons, Hanukkah, new moons, and Purim, they may not lament. After the deceased has been buried, they may neither wail nor clap. Mishnah explains what is considered wailing. This is when they all wail together simultaneously. And what is considered lament? This is when one speaks and they all answer after her with repeated frame as it is stated. When you teach your daughters wailing and everyone, her neighbor, lamentation. In order to conclude on a positive note, the Mishnah says, but with regard to the future, the verse states, you will destroy death forever, and the Lord God will wipe away tears from off the face of the earth, and the reproach of the people you will take away from all of the earth. Isaiah 25:8.
Okay, so this last Mishnah of Moed Katan is doing something we saw on Wednesday as we were reading, right? We are trying to formalize. We want to give structure. So we have two items to identify: wailing and lamentation. And what is the difference between wailing and lamentation? What's the difference between inui and lamentation as this is my note. No, that's wailing. see, lamentation. We have kina. Nor may they lament. There we go. The same root. Makona note. So, lamentation and wailing, we're identifying these two different items, inui and kina, and having done so, in a very sort of formal way, we then move on to conclude with a positive note. Why a positive note? It's the end of the Mishnah, right? It's the last Mishnah. We often miss that when we're studying Gemara. We say, we're done. I mean, this is the conclusion of one thing, and we're going to conclude something else. We know some of the characteristics of how Gemara concludes often. We've seen it before in many Masechtot, that there's a sort of a kolbo aspect, or that reminds me of something else aspect, wherein at the end of a chapter, at the end of a Masechet, you start to sort of pull on other strands, things that might seem to sort of be a stream of consciousness on the part of the editors. Here, however, it's a bit more tightly focused because it's Mishnah, so it's a little bit less content, and it's also focused on something I think rather interesting. How would you classify this? But with regard to the future, we've just been talking about wailing, we've been talking about mourning, we've been talking about the laws of mourning, and we say, with regard to the future, He will destroy death forever, and the Lord God will wipe away tears from off all faces. What is that? What kind of content would you call that? Are we in legal content anymore? Yeah. What is it? It's what? It's homiletical. It's eschatological. It's about sort of a view of the end times. And it's theological. It's the God of history, and it's a hopeful vision for history. And rather than focusing on minutia of practice, it's very much concerned with something much more expansive and looking toward a hopeful vision of the future. Okay, we'll move on to the Gemara. We've got a couple pages, and let's see. Actually, I'll ask somebody to come up and read, so that way we can actually hear them on the mic. Because I know we've got at least one person joining us for and I can get new batteries for that in just a moment. Would somebody like? Okay, thank you. Sure. Yeah, we're just going to continue for the moment.
So Gemara, what do the women who wail over the dead say? Rav said, they say, woe over him who is now departing, woe over him who is now returning the pledge, that is, his soul, which had been deposited in his hands all the years of his life. Rava said, the women in the city of Shechansiv, who were known for their wisdom, would say as follows, woe over him who is now departing, woe over him who is now returning the pledge. And Rava said, the women of Shechansiv would say about an elderly person, the bone has been removed from the jaw and the water returns to the kettle. All right. And Rava said, the women of Shechansiv would say at a time of bereavement, wrap and cover the mountains in mourning, as the deceased is the son of the high and distinguished. Rava said, the women of Shechansiv would say, lend out a cloak of fine wool to serve as a burial shroud for a free man whose sustenance has been depleted. In other words, a wealthy person who loses his fortune would rather die than live in poverty. And Rava said, the women of Shechansiv would say, a person runs and tumbles at the ford, and still he borrows. And Rava said, the women of Shechansiv would say, our brothers, the merchants, will be examined at their places of business to see if they are honest businessmen. And Rava said, the women of Shechansiv would say, death is like death, as everyone must die, and suffering is like interest. It is taught in the Baraita that Rabbi Meir would say with regard to the verse, it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. What should the living lay to his heart? Matters relating to death, and these matters are as follows. He that eulogizes will be eulogized by others. He that buries others will be buried by others. He that loads many words of praise and tribute into the eulogies that he delivers for others will similarly be treated by others. He that raises his voice in weeping over others will have others raise their voices over him. And some say, one who does not raise himself with pride, but chooses his place among the lowly, will be raised by others. As it is written, do not exalt yourself in the king's presence, and stand not in the place of great men. For it is better to be told, step up here, than to be degraded in the presence of the great.
Okay, we'll pause for just a moment. So here we've seen, thank you very much. Here we have seen both a sort of, we have anecdotal evidence from Rava concerning the practices of the women of Shechan Tziv, as well as we see this really it's most of our lesson. I mean, it is, some things about death. Are really sort of taking, I think, the women's statement. Death is like, it says, this is like death. Like death, yeah, that's what it says. Mota ki mota. And suffering is like interest. As a starting point, a launching point for, okay, let's, some other things we think about death. And eulogies and how to eulogize. We've talked a little bit about when to eulogize and when not to eulogize as part of our study. But this takes it in a slightly different direction, thinking about basically reward and reward and punishment, effectively, that sort of view. What benefits one draws out of those actions, of those praiseworthy actions. And we'll also recall, we probably heard it before, you've probably seen it before, better to go to the house of mourning than the house of feasting. That's taken from Kohelet, and it's something that we hear a lot of exposition on from the rabbis. The next page on 192, we're continuing, and we'll move on to another anecdote. Excuse me. About the sons of Rabbi Ishmael. Let's see, Stephen, can you read for us? And we've also got a mic back there, which should work now. It's got batteries this time.
These names are names you're going to be hearing a lot of tonight. The sages taught the following Braita. The sons of Rabbi Ishmael died. 4 elders entered to console him. Rabbi Tafun, Rabbi Yossi, Galili, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Tafun said to them, know that Rabbi Ishmael is a great sage and well versed in Agadot. Let none of you interrupt the words of another, but rather each person should say something novel of his own. Rabbi Akiva said, and I shall speak last. Rabbi Ishmael, the mourners opened and said about him, many are his sins. Due to this his bereavement came in quick succession, and he troubled his teachers once and then the second time to come console him. Having been granted permission to speak, Rabbi Tafun answered and said, with regard to the death of Aaron's sons, it says, but let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning that the Lord has kindled. Are the matters not inferred or fortitude? If with regards to Nadab and Abihu, who had performed only one mitzvah that is explicitly mentioned in the Bible as it is written, and the sons of Aaron brought the blood to him. This is nevertheless stated about them. Then, with regards to the sons of Rabbi Ishmael, who were well known for their performance of many mitzvot, all the more so should the entire Jewish people bewail their death. Rabbi Yossi Hagilizi answered and said, with regards to Abijah, son of King Jeroboam, this verse states, and all Israel shall mourn for him and bury him. and these matters not inferred fortiori. If, with regards to Abijah, son of Jeroboam, who did only one good thing, as it is written, because in him there is found some good thing towards the Lord our God of Israel. He did only one good thing, and this was his reward with regard to the sons of Rabbi Ishmael. All the more so should they be rewarded by having the entire Jewish people mourn for them and bury them.
So, just as a quick aside, we're looking to biblical precedents to try to determine what's appropriate in this situation, and we've picked up on two. Okay, keep going.
Rabbi, the Gemara asks, what was the one good thing that Abijah did? Rabbi Zerah and Rabbi Hanina bar Papa disagreed about this issue. One said he abandoned his guard post. His father Jeroboam had assigned him to serve as one of the guards, whose mission it was to prevent people from going up to Jerusalem on the pilgrimage festivals. And he himself went up to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage festival. And one said he removed the guards that his father Jeroboam had placed along the road, so that the people of Israel would not go up to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage festivals. The Baraita continues. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah answered and said, with regard to King Zedekiah, the verse states, "But you shall die in peace, and with the burning of your fathers, the former kings that were before you, so they shall make a burning for you." Are these matters not inferred a fortiori? If, with regard to Zedekiah, king of Judea, who had performed only one mitzvah that is explicitly mentioned in the Bible, for he had Jeremiah lifted out of the mire. This was nevertheless stated about him. Then with regards to the sons of Rabbi Ishmael, all the more so should they be rewarded by dying in peace. Rabbi Akiva answered and said, the verse states, on that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, like the mourning of
Hadadrimon
in the village of Megiddo. The Gemara comments, with regard to this verse, Rav Yosef said, had it not been for the Aramaic translation of this verse, we would not have known what it is saying, as nowhere in the Bible do we find its incident involving Hadadrimon.
And this is going to tell us what the Aramaic translation says, why that's important.
The Aramaic translation reads as follows: at the time the mourning in Jerusalem will be as great as the mourning over Ahab, son of Omri, who was slain by Hadadrimon, son of Tabarimon, and with the mourning over Josiah, son of Ammon, who was slain by Pharaoh, laying in the valley of Megiddo. The Baraita continues. Are these matters not inferred a fortiori? If, with regard to Ahab, king of Israel, who did only one good thing that is explicitly mentioned in the Bible, as it is written, the king was propped up in his chariot facing Aram, as he did not want the Jewish people to see that he was mortally wounded and flee, and this that he was greatly mourned was nevertheless stated about him. Then all the more so the sons of Rabbi Ishmael he greatly mourned.
Okay, so we've got these series of kal v'chomers, these a fortioris, which I have to say I've never seen that happen in a eulogy before. I've never seen a hesped where someone says, "Well, this is the case, then kal v'chomer," and we go and we. we have a series of sort of reasoned arguments of why we should, be remembering the individual, why we should be mourning the individual that we're talking about. It feels very rabbinic. It feels it's a very Beit Midrash sort of eulogy, or series of eulogies that are being given here. And we also, I think, interestingly, this anecdote is given to us with this sort of star-studded cast, where we have Rabbi Yishmael, we have Rabbi Tarfon, we have Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva, all of whom, are sort of have these sorts of, much larger than life personas within the tradition as Tanaim, and they bring us this, they're cast in this incident, in this Agada that we're getting here, a rabbinic anecdote. There's a lot of depth here and a lot dealing with, this happened when this person died, and these are all sorts of cases from Bible stories that we may well be more familiar with or less familiar with, the situations with, Tzidkiyahu, who's picked out, with Ahav, who's picked out, individuals that we don't necessarily think of as being particularly righteous. And so, no small wonder then that those would be, if you're going to make a Kal V'chomer, those might be some of the folks that you pick. You don't want to go comparing people to Moses, comparing people to David. You compare people to someone else. So that's perhaps a good bit of wisdom there as well. And then let's see. Maybe Bill, can you read for us? And I'll ask, maybe, can you come on, or either speak really closely into the mic, or come on up? Yeah, because it seems I think it's having trouble picking people up.
The Gemara discusses issues in the aforementioned verses. Rava said to Rabba bar Mari, "It is written with regard to Zedekiah, you shall die in peace." But elsewhere it's written, "And he put out Zedekiah's eyes." Rabba bar Mari said to him, Rabbi Yochanan said as follows, the first verse, "You shall die in peace," means that Nebuchadnezzar died in Zedekiah's lifetime, and consequently the latter died in peace, having seen the death of the wicked. And Rava further said to Rabba bar Mari, "It is written with regard to Josiah, Behold, therefore I will gather you unto your fathers, and you will be gathered unto your grave in peace." And elsewhere it's written, "And the archers shot at King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, Get me away, for I am grievously wounded." And with regard to this verse, Rabbi Yehuda said that Rav said, "With their many arrows they made his body like a sieve." Rabba bar Mari said to him, Rabbi Yochanan said as follows, "The words 'in peace' stated with regard to King Josiah refer to the fact that the temple was not destroyed in his lifetime. As the verse itself continues, "And your eyes shall not see all the evil that I will bring upon this place." The Gemara returns to examining the halachot of consolation. Rabbi Yochanan said the consolers are not permitted to speak words of consolation until the mourner opens and speaks first. As it is stated, "And they sat down with him upon the ground for 7 days and 7 nights, and none spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. After this, Job opened his mouth. And afterward, an Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said," Rabbi Abahu said, "From where is it derived that the mourner reclines at the head of the table? As it is stated, I chose out their way and sat as chief, Rosh, and dwelt as a king in the army, as one that comforts Yenachem the mourners." This indicates that the mourner sits at the head of the table as the chief. The Gemara raises an objection, but the word Yenachem means that he comforts others, thereby implying that the one who comforts the mourners sits at the head of the table. Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak said, "The word is written as Yenachem, meaning will be comforted, and therefore it can be understood as referring to the mourner." Mar Zutra said, "A proof may be derived from here. The verse and the revelry, the mitzah, of those who stretch themselves out shall pass away, sar, means that mirza, he who is bitter and whose mind is overwrought due to grief, is made a prince, a sar, over those who sit beside him stretched out below him to comfort him. Rabbi Chamar bar Hanina said, from where is it derived that a groom reclines at the head of the table? As it is stated, as a bridegroom decks himself, yechachnen, with a garland, just as a priest, a kohen, is at the head of the table, so too a bridegroom is at the head of the table. The Gemara asks, well, from where do we derive that the priest himself sits at the head? The Gemara answers, as the school of Rabbi Yishmael taught, with regard to a priest it says, you shall sanctify him, for he offers the bread of your God, meaning that you are to sanctify him with regard to all matters of sanctity, to be first to begin reading the Torah, to be first to recite the grace after meals, and to be first to take a portion during a meal.
Okay, so, no? Yeah? Oh, there we go. I just have to speak directly into it. A couple of things. One thing I just wanted to point out the point. So while with Tzidkiyahu, with Zedekiah, there's this seems to be a contradiction. We don't have the same explicit contradiction, I guess, that's being there with the gathered in peace, gathered to your grave in peace versus being shot full of arrows that we see with Yoshiyahu. We're actually maybe dealing with a slightly different situation there, trying to reconcile difficulties between two texts, between Kings and Chronicles. Actually, as I say that, I was saying that I'm not sure what the citation is for "You shall die in peace" for Tzidkiyahu, which perhaps that's also. I'll have to see, but Shalom Tamut. So I will actually look that one up and see where I can find that. We'll solve the mystery by the time we're done. The other item I wanted to point out is that now we've done a very classic turn. We've been talking about the Rosh. Who sits at the Rosh? And even though we're not talking about mourning anymore, we're still going to talk about who sits at the head of the table, who is seated as the Rosh at the table. So we say the groom, we say the priest. We've sort of gone to that stream of consciousness. Okay, and then Bill, if you'll take us home.
The Gemara returns to its discussion of death. Rabbi Hanina said the soul's departure from the body is as difficult as it is for a knotted rope to pass through an eye in the ship's rigging. Rabbi Yochanan said it's as difficult as it is for a halyard to pass through an eye. And Rabbi Levi bar Chayata said, one who departs from the deceased should not say to him, go to peace, but rather he should say, go in peace. One who departs from the living should not say to him, go in peace, but rather he should say, go to peace. One who departs from the deceased should not say to him, go to peace, but rather, go in peace, as it is stated, and you shall go to your fathers in peace, you shall be buried in a good old age. One who departs from the living should not say to him, go in peace, but rather, go to peace, as David said to Absalom, go in peace. And he subsequently went and was hanged, whereas Jethro said to Moses, go to peace, and he went and was successful. And Rabbi Levi said, anyone who leaves from the synagogue and goes to the study hall, or goes from the study hall to the synagogue, that is, he goes from the mitzvah of prayer to the mitzvah of Torah study, or vice versa, merits to receive the divine presence. As it is stated, they go from strength to strength, and every one of them appears before God in Zion. With regard to the same verse, Rabbi Chia bar Ashi said that Rav said, Torah scholars have no rest, even in the world to come, as even there they remain in constant movement and ascent. As it is stated, they go from strength to strength, every one of them appears before God in Zion. Even when they are in the world to come, they continue to go from strength to strength until the final redemption will arrive in the end of days, and God will appear in Zion.
All right. The answer to our question was they're both from Jeremiah. and that's why that's not exactly why there's no citation. It should have been Jeremiah 34 and Jeremiah 39. So two different chapters, but both directed to both related to Tzidkiyahu in Jeremiah. Yes, it's not here. It's actually at the back of the book, or nope, it's at the back of the English. So if you have, I think Bill also has a copy. I think Bill's the only one that has a copy. And interestingly, let's see. I think it's through the right here. Yeah, there it is. So it's back at the. So Bill, if you're looking, if you start at the other end and go to the end of the Hebrew Aramaic text, that's where we are. So he's going to say we can read this one together if we can gather around sufficiently. So he's got a copy, I've got a copy. So between us, we can get there. And I don't know that we'll do the whole thing in. I can't see it. Okay, sorry. Oh, I understand. Okay. So we read. Hadran alach Masechet Moed Katan veHadrach Alan Da'atan alach Masechet Moed Katan veDa'atach Alan La Nitnashei Minach Masechet Moed Katan veLa Titnashi Minan La Be'alama Hadain veLa Be'alama De'ate. We shall return to you, Tractate Moed Katan, and your glory is upon us. Our thoughts are upon you, Tractate Moed Katan, and your thoughts are upon us. We will not be forgotten from you, Tractate Moed Katan, and you will not be forgotten from us, neither in this world nor in the world to come. And one more time in the Aramaic, Hadran alach Masechet Moed Katan, veHadrach Alan Da'atan alech Masechet Moed Katan, veDa'atach Alan, La Nitnashei Minach Masechet Moed Katan, V'la nitneshi minan la ba'alama hadain v'la ba'alama da'ate. And we'll conclude in the English. May it be your will, Adonai our God and God of our ancestors, that your Torah will be our avocation and will accompany us to the world to come. Hanina bar Papa, Rame bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Daru bar Papa. Please, Adonai our God, make the words of your Torah sweet in our mouths and in the mouths of your people, the house of Israel, so that we, our descendants and their descendants, and the descendants of your people, the house of Israel, may all know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Your commandments make me wiser than my enemies, for they are ever with me. Let my heart be undivided in your statutes, in order that I may not be put to shame. I will never forget your precepts, for with them you have quickened me. Blessed are you, Adonai, teach me your statutes. Amen, 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 Selah. Modim anachnu lefanecha. We give thanks before you, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, that you have placed our lot among those who sit in the study hall, and that you have not given us our portion among those who sit idly on street corners. We rise early, and they rise early. We rise early to pursue matters of Torah, and they rise early to pursue frivolous matters. We toil, and they toil. We toil and receive reward, and they toil and do not receive reward. We run, and they run. We run to the life of the world to come, and they run to the pit of destruction. As it is stated, but you, God, will bring them down into the pit of destruction. Men of blood and deceit shall not live out half their days, but as for me, I will trust in you. May it be your will, Adonai, my God, just as you have assisted me in completing Tractate Moed Katan, so assist me to begin other tractates and books and conclude them, to learn and to teach, to observe and to perform, and to fulfill all the teachings of your Torah with love. And may the merit of all the Tanaim and the Amoraim and the Torah scholars stand for me and my descendants, so that the Torah will not move from my mouth and from the mouths of my descendants and the descendants of my descendants forever. And may the verse, when you walk, it shall lead you, and when you lie down, it shall watch over you, and when you awaken, it shall talk with you, be fulfilled in me. For in the Torah your days shall be multiplied, and the years of your life shall be increased. Length of days is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. May Adonai give strength to his people. Adonai will bless his people in peace. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech tamo v'shalom. Thank you all.
This concludes our siyum. If you're watching us online, that is a conclusion for our study, and we're invited to a festive meal to celebrate.